Good evening, Yorktown, and welcome to the Town Board work session for Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. If you could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll have Councilman Lachterman lead us.
I pledge allegiance
to
to
the flag of the United States of America,
and to the
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. If we could all bow our heads for a moment of silence as we pray for more healing for our nation, especially following another violent episode in Boulder, Colorado, as well as that terrible episode in Atlanta, Georgia. We keep our thoughts and prayers with all those who are continuing to battle COVID-19. We pray for those who we have unfortunately lost due to COVID-19.
Yes.
Of course, we pray for our frontline heroes. That includes, obviously, our teachers, our first responders, our police officers, our grocery store workers, and, of course, our doctors and nurses. And lastly, we say a special prayer for the men and women serving overseas, the bravest soldiers the world has ever known, those serving in the United States military. Thank you. We'll do introductions quickly. Again, my name is Matt Slater, Town Supervisor, joined by Councilman Vishnu Patel. We have Councilman Ed Lachterman, Councilwoman Alice Roker, Councilman Tom Diana, our Town Clerk, Diana Quast, and we also have with us tonight our Town Attorney, Adam Rodriguez. We are going to start our work session agenda with a visit by our Chief of Police, Robert Noble. While we wait for him, I'm going to take a moment just to talk COVID for a little bit. Important to note, over the last about, I'd say 5 days, we've had a bit of an uptick here in the town of Yorktown on active cases. So it is important that we continue to stay vigilant and responsible. We are doing all we can, and I thank all of our partners, the town board, our town clerk. I thank my staff for all their work in getting local vaccine distribution points here in the town of Yorktown. But it does not mean that we can let up on what we know works, which, again, is wearing a mask, washing your hands, practicing your social distancing, and just making responsible decisions. Very happy to say that today my son had his first day of school, which means he returned to kindergarten full-time with his full class for the first time this year. So we're very excited to see that progress, and we thank our partners in our local school districts for their tremendous efforts and leadership. But it's, again, important to remember, COVID's not gone away. And so we still have to be smart. People are still catching this terrible virus every single day in our community. We continue to update our COVID impact dashboard. You can go see the numbers yourself. That's right on the town's website, yorktownny.org. I'm hoping at the end of the week to be joined by Dr. Shalita Amler, Commissioner of Health for Westchester County, to talk about, again, some of the reminders and talk about some of the vaccine information that we've learned, but also to help remind people, especially next week, which is spring break, that, again, I know the weather was nice today. It was a beautiful afternoon, but COVID is still here. So we still have to be smart, be responsible, and continue to battle this terrible virus together as a community. And so with that being said, if anyone has any questions regarding the local vaccine distribution points, you can always call Town Hall here. You can call my office or the clerk's office. We're happy to assist anyone that we can. There is a standby list that you can sign up for right on the town's website. It's located right on the homepage. Just go to yorktownny.org, scroll down. You can enter your information. The good news is now, according to the state, anyone now over the age of 50 is able to get a vaccine. Of course, our essential workers, public-facing employees, I'm happy to report that our staff here at Town Hall and in our departments are getting the vaccine. And I want to thank our partners at Westchester County for making that possible. The county has been just a great partner for us. And of course, anyone with a documented comorbidity can get a vaccine. And we are continuing to do our best, like I said, to provide that service right here in the town of Yorktown. On yesterday, Albertson, which is the pharmacy arm of Acme, vaccinated 300 people at the Albert A. Capellini Community Cultural Center, which is great. We expect another 200 people to be vaccinated on Thursday, courtesy of Taconic Pharmacy, again at the Albert A. Capellini Community Cultural Center. And we are partnering with more people every single day to try to get more vaccines right here in our community. So to add your list, again, go to yorktownny.org. You can add your name to the standby list, or you can call Town Hall, call my office, or you can call the town clerk's office. And with that, I'm proud to welcome our Chief of Police, Robert Noble. Chief, how are you? Chief, you're muted. If you can unmute yourself.
How about now? Am I good?
Perfect. We got you.
We hear you.
All right. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hey, Bob.
Hey there.
Hey, Bob.
Chief, I wanted to start with one piece of news that I think is going to be released tomorrow officially, which is that we have a new vehicle as part of the fleet for Yorktown Police Department, correct?
Yes, it's a 64 Impala. It's a nice new hybrid, Ford hybrid vehicle. And so far it's running pretty well. We got our traffic safety officer, Bob Rohr, using it. He's putting a lot of miles on it to see if it's something that will work well for us on Yorktown's roads. And so far so good. We're optimistic that we may be ordering another one in May. Who knows? We'll see.
Excellent. And I also want to thank you and your department for your help on the illegal dumping incident that occurred out on Decatur Road up in Lake Mohegan. We had another incident there, and I know that you did a great job.
Nice team effort. Officer Batista proactively patrolling the area and spotted the carnage, and then he worked very well with Jason Zeif, and you know what? It all ended very well. We get. I wish we could catch more, but every now and then it'll serve as a deterrent when you slap a good fine on somebody for, it's a classless act. I mean, dumping on a nice area of Mohegan Lake like that, it's something we can't tolerate. I'm glad we finally were able to bring somebody to account for that.
Absolutely. Again, great work by your department
thank you.
on that case. I know that we wanted to have you come by, and I know that you had reached out to me as well to just briefly have a conversation with the town board with some of the recent incidents that unfortunately have transpired in other communities, most notably over in Boulder, Colorado, and in Atlanta, Georgia. I know that I was speaking with Councilwoman Roker, and I know that she was hoping that you'd be able to join us as well. So we do appreciate your time tonight.
No, absolutely. Anytime. You know that. I'm happy to be here. And if the public is watching this, what you want to remind people is, look, this is horrible. It's something that, it just, you stop what you're doing and you just realize how fragile, your life is. And we live in an outstanding community, a safe community, community that rallies around each other, but it can happen anywhere, unfortunately. So what I would say is, first of all, if you haven't signed up for Nixle, that's our community alert system. And in an emergency, if something like this were to happen, we'd be sending alerts out via Nixle. So what you want to do is you text your zip code. And we have several of them in Yorktown. You could be in 10535 in the Valley, 10598, 10547. You text whatever zip code you want, and you can have multiple zip codes, to 888777. And that's going to get you signed up for Nixle. We do have, I think we hit, close to 10,000, on the alerts, because we put it out over a, as the crow flies, a 5-mile radius from the epicenter, and that covers all of Yorktown, and it encroaches into our border towns that do sign up for Nixle in our zip code, because whether it's through our Facebook page or our Nixle page, there are surrounding townships that get their information. They have, they've said to me that, Yorktown is very, very, on the cutting edge of sharing information with the public. So again, I encourage people to sign up for Nixle. That is our community alert and our emergency alert system. And as far as these incidents happening, and like I said, they can happen anywhere. You know, when you go out during the day, you're pretty much carefree, and you should be, but it doesn't hurt to have a plan when you go out. Now, it can be a simple plan. It can be something to remind yourself when you're walking out of, let's say, you know, the mall or a store or anywhere. You have your car keys in your hand, you know, and you know that most of your car keys are key fobs. You could set your alarm off pretty well. I do it by accident, you know, very well. So you can identify that you know, on your fob or your keychain. And if you ever have, you know, you're feeling uneasy, just hit that horn beeping. You know what? People will turn around and look, and you know what? That's a simple plan. If you have a little bit more of an extensive plan, like, you know, me, I think cops are kind of wired this way, you know. But when we go places, we're looking for exit. You know, we're looking for exit doors. You know, at least one, hopefully two. And you know, I sit with my back to the wall, and I like to see everything. But you know, it doesn't take much that when you walk in somewhere that you just pay attention to your surroundings. And if you just make that part of your routine, you know, you're gonna have people say, hey, you know what, you're doom and gloom and you're worrying too much. You know, you have people that say, I don't lock my doors. You know, I don't lock my car doors. I don't lock my house doors. You know, I shouldn't have to. Unfortunately, you know what? It just gives you that added level of security. And even if you have that personal plan, when you go out, when you leave your house during the day, it comes in handy. And it's just a small routine. It doesn't take much thought once you get that mindset and you have that personal plan. So as far as the you know, both of the suspects, you have what happened down south, you know, in the Atlanta area, and then you have what happened out in Boulder, Colorado. You can't tell me that somebody wasn't aware that these two individuals had issues, had put some type of breadcrumb out there that they were capable. And, you know, you'll hear us say it all the time in whether it's law enforcement, whether it's fire services, whether it's any type of emergency service. If you see something, say something. But we take it a step further. If you know something, say something. And, you know, there's a reason why New York State adopted the red flag laws, the extreme risk orders of protection that can be initiated by family members, by school, by you know, first mandatory reporters, your school teachers, school personnel, and you know, it's a powerful tool that, you know, if there is somebody either in your family or that, you know, you're aware of, if you make strong enough case, if you come to the police department and you give us enough that we can petition a judge, and we, you know, we need that judge's order to acquire that extreme risk protective order. If you make that case, we can try to help you. But if you sit silently,
right,
there's not much we
Right.
can do. So, you know, like I said, these people out there that committed these heinous crimes, they're few and far between. So we don't want to scare people, but you just want to remind people of what they can do if they do think that there is somebody that shouldn't own a firearm. And like I said, look, that's something that people, you know, fiercely protect, but there are some people out there that do not have the mental capacity and maybe struggling with mental illness, or, you know, that just should not own or possess a firearm. And I think once you dig deeper into these people who wound up, you know, the person who shot up 10 people at Boulder, Colorado, and the person who shot up, I think it was eight people, you know, killed 8 people in Atlanta, you're going to find that there was some type of mental illness. I'm confident of it. You know, I can't say that for sure, but you're asking me as a professional with close to 28 years of experience, I'm going to tell you that these people probably demonstrated signs that they had the potential to make this happen. And that's all we're telling people. If you know something, say something. You know, and like I said, in law enforcement, with the police, we're all that much better when the community works with us and helps us out. You know, when we have a lot of eyes and ears out there, there's not a lot that we can't accomplish in so far as making our town as safe as it can be. And thankfully, you've seen the last few years, we've been recognized as a safe community. Part of it is, like I said, people being at ease, coming to us and tipping us off, and you could do it anonymously. Nixle has our anonymous tip line. You could leave us anonymous tips on Nixle. You can also go to info@yorktownpd.org, and you can also contact a town government representative as like town board members who sit as police commissioners. There's a lot of layers to alert people. If you think you know something or you may have seen something that is troublesome, that needs to be looked into. And I can tell you flat out, we're very respectful of people's rights. You won't find and I think the lack of lawsuits that cross each of your desks and the town attorney's desk, will demonstrate that. We follow the laws and we're very mindful of people's individual rights. But as you see, these incidents that do happen across the nation that bring that cause to concern, where multiple lives are being lost in a single incident, when we all rally together and we all keep our eyes and ears open, we're all that much safer and we're all that much better off.
The other thing, Chief, your department, you run active shooter workshops. What if there is a group?
Go ahead, I'm cutting you off.
No, it's okay. If there is a group or a church that wants to have one of those workshops, are you still willing to run it again?
We're getting there. With COVID, we're trying not to do many things indoors, much like we're meeting on Zoom right now, having this type of meeting via Zoom. We do want to get that up and running again, and I'm hopeful that by the summer we'll be able to possibly meet indoors, or if it's a nice night, hopefully the weather cooperates, it might be something we may be able to do outside. But yes, we have provided the citizen response to active shooter event training in multiple venues, and I believe you all still have a copy because the first one we did at Town Hall,
right?
And we played it on the town government channel. So
we can play that again, and maybe that's
something that you want to do and you want to retrieve and put it out there. The nice thing I know is, and I'm sure Officer Caprio and Sergeant Woodard will tell you, that was their maiden voyage right there.
That was their first one.
First time they put it out, so they've become a little more polished, and they're very, very skilled with the presentation. And I tend to go out there with them to answer any questions from the public that they may not be able to answer, in case there's an occasional landmine or two thrown their way. But yes, I'm very proud of what they do, and that citizen response to active shooter event training will be back up and running. I believe we had to cancel out on St. Pat's and St. Andrews. They are the two next venues that are up, the two next locations that will be the first two to receive the training. And then if there are other, civic groups or other venues that we can identify, or if you want to do it again at a live town board meeting and present it, because there has been sadly more events that could probably be discussed. I believe the last time we did it was the shooting at NC Charlotte. I think you were presented.
Yeah.
And we had a shooting there that night. Councilman Patel, you had your hand up?
It is never been proved so far in history. There is nothing like one hand touches other. Your hand touches somebody else. It can cure many diseases, which medicine cannot teach. That is a historical fact by the psychologists and like that. So I hope that we can bring the normalcy as soon as we can, because there is nothing more important than touching somebody else's hand, somebody's sick hand like that. No chocolate, no roses will ever, will supplement that thing. You can say the prayer, but nothing like touching the human hand. Your signal from your heart goes to somebody else's heart. That brings much more than any medicine.
Right.
So do what we can and hope that it will come back soon.
Chief, what we can do, at least initially, is we'll replay the first maiden voyage of the training, which I actually attended. And it was funny because I was down, I think I remember I was down in the city that weekend, and I had all the things that the officers were talking about echoing in my head, looking at different exit routes, making sure that I knew my surroundings. I remember distinctly, actually, I was in Grand Central, and I remember repositioning myself based on what I learned in that seminar. And again, it's not, I don't think it's something that is, it's better to be proactive. And we're not saying that, that it's going to happen, but it's always better to be prepared. And it's a very educational seminar. So I think it would be great for us to be playing that, especially with things the way they are. But once you're ready and your officers are ready, I would love to have you come back to Town Hall so we can tape an updated version and we can have that out on the Government Access channel as well.
Boulder is a wonderful city. It's obviously a lot bigger than Yorktown, but I just call it a city Yorktown. It's very low key, and I think of it as I think of Yorktown, where you'd say this would never happen, and unfortunately there are realities in this world. And I think what the chief said is right. If you know something, say something.
Yeah, no, like I said, yeah, it's absolutely true. It's, you hear that you see something, say something, but that's only part of it. If you know something, say something. And Yorktown's a very, very unique, you show me a 40 square mile community with 5 different business districts and we're spread out. And there's a lot of different, areas in town, and it's a very, very safe community. But like you just said, Alice, it can happen anywhere, unfortunately. So, we all have to do our part. And, like I said, as I've said before, we have an excellent relationship, with the community as well as with our partners in the county, state, and federal law enforcement. So we do have that dialogue, going with them. And we have, there are agencies that have never had to deal with an extreme risk protective order. We've executed several of them in Yorktown. Right. And, at each one that I've been at, the amount of, the last one I was at with the weapons, the fertilizer, you name what was coming out of that house. I wouldn't want to be that neighbor, living next to that house. It was remarkable. But again, without help from the public, we can't see that, but the neighbors might. Somebody might have a cause for concern and be able to articulate it in the right way. We're mindful of people's rights. Mm-hmm. We're just trying to do the right thing in a matter of safety. And at the end of the day, if we were to get this order, a judge has to sign off on that order. And it's not a threshold that's easily obtained, but if you articulate it the right way and it's truthful and factual, you'll get that order.
Great.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions from the board?
Nope.
No, I do have, Chief, if you want to stay on, you're more than welcome to. I do have a resolution, and my apologies for not getting it out sooner, but it is a resolution condemning the acts of violence in Georgia and Colorado, as well as rejecting all forms of racism, discrimination, and oppression. And I'll read it in its entirety, and I'll get it over to the clerk for her minutes. It states as follows: whereas on March 16th, 2021, 8 innocent people were killed in a series of shootings at massage parlors located in and around Atlanta, Georgia. And whereas a week later, on March 23rd, 2021, 10 innocent people were killed at King Soopers grocery stores in Boulder, Colorado. And whereas citizens of Yorktown have long embraced the basic premise of American society that all people are created equal, and whereas the town of Yorktown and this town board have previously condemned all acts of violence, especially those that have been inspired by hatred, whereas the strength of racial, religious, and cultural diversity is recognized and respected by all agencies and departments of the town of Yorktown, including the Yorktown Police Department. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the town of Yorktown wholeheartedly condemns the heinous, violent acts in Georgia and Colorado that cost 18 innocent people their lives. And be it further resolved that the town of Yorktown once again reaffirms its commitment to achieving a free and equal society. And be it further resolved that the town of Yorktown once again rejects hate-motivated crime as an attack on the fabric of American society and the ideals of pluralism and diversity. And be it further resolved that the town of Yorktown rejects violence and the destruction of property. and is committed to the protection and safety of all its residents. And be it further resolved, the town of Yorktown wholeheartedly rejects all forms of hatred, racism, oppression, religious or ethnic bias, discrimination, incitement of violence, and vandalism. And be it further resolved that the town board pauses in its deliberation to remember the lives lost, the first responders and police officers who responded, and the first responders and police officers who responded to the call for help.
Motion.
A second?
So moved.
A second for Councilman Diana. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And if I could just add one thing to that, is to keep that one officer who lost his life in your thoughts and prayers, and also his family in your thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that, Councilman Diana. His name is Eric Talley, and he's a father of 7.
Yep.
Wow.
Gave up a lucrative career in IT work to become a police officer at the age of 40 years old, and he was outgunned as people were running away and he was running to danger. He didn't have a chance with somebody who had an AR-15. It's just it wasn't his day, and yeah, if we could all pause, every victim is, it's every loss of life is unacceptable. But Eric Talley, running towards danger again and trying to make a difference and trying to save lives. It's just sad. It's a sad reality for men and women of law enforcement.
I have a question for the supervisor. The resolution, we pass it now. Are we going to send it to the county and the state? Would be really nice to have our voice that we are united in the town, and we hate and bias and all these things cannot exist in our town. People will be, maybe somebody hear it and they will pay attention that, listen, hey, maybe we can always do good things, I mean, one good thing can make it 2 good things and 4, and this is where we can unite our community and help those who are in a need, because those numbers of incidents in Georgia and Boulder, but we never know how many families and friends, it's a very large number of people affected. So our hearts and the prayer goes out to each and everyone, and hope we can do something together to make this place world better for all of us together.
Yes, Councilman, we'll make sure that it does get distributed to all agencies. I know that the clerk handles that, and she does a great job with it. We'll also make sure to amend the resolution to specifically mention Police Officer Talley and his heroic actions.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Chief, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening.
Hey, you too. Stay safe, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go on to our next item of discussion, which is the Northern Westchester Community Wireless Master Plan. We're joined by Susan Rapp, who is a project manager. Susan, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Hello. Good to see you.
Hello. Let me share my screen.
Yep. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Sure. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
I believe we have a few other members of our staff who are joining us for this. I'm not sure if they're on, but we do have our Director of Planning, John Tegeter, and I see that we have Elizabeth Smith with us as well.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you. All right. I will just jump right on in. My name is Susan Raybold with Cityscape Consultants, and as just mentioned, Elizabeth Harrington Smith is with me also. I'm the project manager for the Cooperative Wireless Telecommunications Infrastructure Plan, and we were hired by the county actually to do this master plan. It was brought to the county collectively by the communities that make up the study area and the county as a joint project, and the county opted to fund it. So I want to introduce to you Cityscape. We only work for local government agencies, and we do not work for a particular service provider or a tower owner. We don't sell a subscription service for the wireless services. We only work in the niche market of working with local government to provide unbiased information on wireless telecommunications. Our team includes engineers, legal staff, government relations, project management, and account management. The project that we are undertaking has about 6 or 7 steps, and they're listed here, but I'm going to go through them using the slides to describe each step that we have in the project. The first task is to review all of the existing wireless telecommunication infrastructure. Those are the antennas that are used to make your wireless hand phone, your tablets, any of your wireless devices work, whether they be mounted on a tower or on a building or on a rooftop. And so in order to research that, we reach out to each of the communities. And the communities in the study area include Yorktown, Somers, North Salem, Lewisboro, Pound Ridge, Bedford, and Mount Kisco. So we reached out to each of those communities and asked for any data that they had on the infrastructure that they knew of. We also went through the FCC antenna registration site. We go through tower owner data that we have access to and other web-based resources to come up with a comprehensive list where all the infrastructure is located. So that's task 1. Task 2, we actually moved up. We usually do these public initiation meetings first, but we had an opportunity back in October to come out and do the assessments. We wanted to get the assessments done before the bad weather set in. There was a lull, or a dip, I should say, not a lull, but a dip in the coronavirus counts. And so we felt we could come out at that time and do these assessments. The assessments includes an actual visit to each site that we map. We're looking first to make sure that the site exists, and we verify its location. Then we want to look and see who's on the facility. We check the ground space. Is there enough ground space to add additional equipment? Is the ground space secure? Is the landscaping alive if it was required? We just do a general overall analysis of each location, and we record that data. Then once it's recorded, our task 3 is to develop an inventory catalog for each community and for the overall study area. These images on the left, well, they might be your left. They're my right. My right, maybe your right, or maybe your left. But anyway, these images are an example of what a page out of the inventory would look like. Each site has a number. We'll give the address. We'll identify the location, whether it's on public property, private property, and a utility easement, the type of infrastructure that's there, the latitude and longitude, the site name, the height, if there's an FCC registration number, the service providers, any notes that we have on that site. And there'll be an image of the site as well as a vicinity map. Once that inventory catalog is done, we will send it back to the community to verify. After we get verification from each community, we will then start our mapping. And the mapping is twofold. We do an inventory map that shows the sites, and then the inventory map becomes the base for the engineering mapping. So this is an example of a map that we did for another community in Massachusetts. And it's what we call our gap analysis. So we're looking to see where wireless infrastructure gaps are. This map shows where all the existing macro cells are by symbol of a black dot. This purpley dot is a small wireless facility. And then these color variations are showing the level of coverage from that infrastructure. The yellow is symbolizing that there is indoor coverage, meaning your handset will work inside the building. As that color gradiates to the green shades, it symbolizes in vehicle, You might have some indoor coverage. It'll probably be unreliable. But then as the color graduates to blue, this is primarily outdoor coverage. You're probably not going to have any indoor coverage in these blue areas. And then where there is no color gradation, those areas are marginal or service no coverage sites. Mm-hmm. So the areas that are yellow, we don't really pay too much attention to. It's these areas that are blue and that have no color gradation that we identify as gaps. And we know that the industry is going to want to go in there. And so we target those areas to show to you so you can plan for them. The next thing that we do is we take into consideration the census data. If you have traffic counts available, we will use that. Our maps are not exact to what a service provider is going to show you. And the reason for that is the service providers, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, which is combined now, Future Dish Networks, that information is proprietary. So we don't have the exact antenna that they use. We don't have the exact power output or the beam tilt. What we use is a generic but very similar antenna model that would work for any of the service providers. And we simulate that coverage from that antenna. So each service provider's footprint is going to look a little different. And again, we're not paying attention so much to these yellow areas. We really want to look at these gaps. So when you put it together, you have the inventory map, you have your map that is showing the coverage, and then we, like I said, we compare it with the census data. And this gives us an idea of what a capacity issue might be for the community, or if there's a capacity issue. So the coverage is simply that, is to get a phone signal out so that you can have a call and text messaging and some data. But in order for your data to work effectively, it requires a lot of bandwidth. And we know that where you have high density of subscribers using a lot of bandwidth, this coverage map is going to shrink considerably. It could almost evaporate and become blue or green based on the number of people using the subscription simultaneously. So for example, when we look at the census data map, these areas that are sort of a deep red or a sort of a reddish brown, that area is symbolizing over 10,000 people per square mile in that census block. On the coverage map, it may look like there is substantial service, and there is. But from a capacity point, even though there's all this infrastructure, we expect there to be a strain on that system. And so even though there's quite a few sites here, we anticipate in the next 10 years that they'll need probably triple that, maybe quadruple that, in order to meet just the subscriber's needs for densification for bandwidth. So we put all that into an analysis, and then we compare our findings to your ordinance and your policies. And we're looking to see if there are any potential barriers to entry with your zoning. It's not uncommon for us to find gaps in areas that are low density residential, and then find in the zoning ordinance that wireless infrastructure is not permitted in those zoning districts. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a barrier to entry unless we can show, or if we can show that the service providers can go around the perimeter of those zones and penetrate into the middle and have coverage and capacity, then that is probably not a barrier to entry. But if we cannot show that, then that's a problem. And your communities that have that need to address it. There's also been a lot of changes through the FCC and through congressional acts that affect the deployment of wireless. There's been an erosion of what local government can do to regulate the industry through lobbying of the wireless industry to expedite their deployment. And so there are certain things that you need to either have or remove in your ordinance based on what those newest policies are. So we will look at that. We will put in a red line and in an abbreviated analysis the items that we think you need to address. This project does not include doing a revised ordinance, simply reviewing it and providing recommendations on how to address what we find. Once we pull all this information together, we move into tasks 6 and 7. We'll have another public meeting with you. We'll present to you our findings. We'll take public comment. We'll address public comment. And then we will put together a final document that addresses the deployment pattern in your community, along with the bigger picture of all 7 communities. So we're doing an overview of the 7, and then each community will have, like, for example, their own chapter or their own appendix for their individual master plan that you can use that will help you address the deployment of future wireless. So I want to take a few moments to really discuss the terminology that we're going to be using during our study. And you may hear a lot about 4G and 5G, but what you might not understand is where that came from and how we got to 4 and 5G. If any of you were familiar with the very first wireless phones that came out, they looked like a handbag, and they sort of look like what's in this picture. That was first generation wireless that operated in the low megahertz frequency, which meant that the signal went out a great distance. And the towers didn't need to be but, 4 to 8 miles apart because of the distance that the signal can travel in that bandwidth or in that spectrum. And there was no features like we have now in our handsets. It was simply for phone calls. Second and third generation came out with this type of a handset, and it operated in the higher frequency bandwidth of 1900 megahertz frequency. Just by changing that variable, it meant that the quality of the phone call was crisper. You were able to start doing some texting. And it also meant, though, that the antenna had to be closer together because this signal only transmits about 2 to 4 miles. And that's in flat land. That's not taking into consideration topography like what you have in your region. And then now with 4 and 5G, you have all these various apps that come in your handset. You've got telephone, you've got GPS, you've got music, you can watch the news, you can watch movies, you can send video. In order to do that, like I said, it takes a lot of bandwidth. And so 4 and 5G and 6G and 7G are all about the bandwidth and bringing more bandwidth to the customer, which means you're going to need more infrastructure. So the infrastructure that we're talking about for a macro cell are these larger antenna arrays that I'm sure you're familiar with that are placed on towers or on buildings. And there's 3 types of non-concealed macro towers. They're the guide towers that have the supports that hold it up. And then you have self-supporting, non-guy wired towers, such as the monopole and the lattice tower. And these are unconcealed, meaning you can see all of the infrastructure. There's also what we call concealed and semi-concealed infrastructure for macro towers. The faux tree we consider semi-concealed. You don't see all of the wires and cabling that go up to the antenna. Frequently, you will see the antenna. Now, this particular macro monopine has been done very well. It has the socks that go over the antenna, so it blends in more with the fake foliage, but not all of them are like that. So for that reason, we consider the monopine to be a semi-concealed tower. But these unipoles are actually what we call concealed towers. because the antenna are mounted closely together on a beam inside that goes up, the shaft that goes up from the bottom of the tower. And then you have an RF friendly fiberglass casing that goes over that so that you can't see any of the antenna or any of the coax cable going down to the base equipment. These facilities can be painted, as you can see in these photos. We've also seen them painted blue and gray and black and brown, and we've seen them camouflaged in terms of multicolors for camo. You can do a lot of different things with these towers to have them blend in with your environment. Now, when the antenna, the macro cell antenna, are mounted on something that is not a tower, that is built for the sole purpose of holding that equipment, it is now called a base station. This is new. A base station used to be considered the ground equipment at the bottom of the tower, like you see in this image. But with the first report and order, the FCC reappropriated the definition to mean any structure that the antenna will mount onto that is not built for the sole purpose of holding it. So, for example, this water tank was not built to hold this antenna, and so it's considered a base station. Similarly, this rooftop penthouse was not built to hold the antenna, so it's a base station. This transmission tower that was built for the utilities but has, you can see the antenna mounted on it, is also considered a base station. Now, these are considered non-concealed and semi-concealed because you can readily see them. Even though this is painted, these antennae are painted, we would consider that semi-concealed because you can still see the rest of the cables. Other examples of the concealed and semi-concealed are on this slide. We consider this semi-concealed also. Even though the antenna is wrapped, you can still see the wires. So that's semi-concealed. However, for the church, this steeple is built for the antenna, and you can't see any of the equipment, just the louvers for the ventilation. Similarly, this second or top story, if you didn't know that this was the antenna array, you wouldn't know that it was there. And so that is also an example of a concealed facility. Now, those were macro cells. You're going to start seeing the deployment of small wireless facilities. These, by definition, are no more than 50 feet in height, and the antenna, by definition, is no more than 3 cubic feet. And they are intended to increase capacity. They'll provide a little bit of coverage, but they're really intended to provide densification. They also can be concealed or non-concealed. So this first image is non-concealed. You see the antenna, you see all the cabling going into the transmission equipment and all the meters that go and tie all this site together. Conversely, this middle image is a concealed facility. Here's the antenna at the top. All of the transmission equipment and metering is down in this base. We also consider this a dual purpose because these are functioning lights and they have space here for banners. And as you develop your ordinance for small wireless facilities, and honestly, I haven't looked at your ordinance yet, so I don't know if you have small wireless provisions in your ordinance now. If you do, that's great. If you don't, one thing you need to make sure you pay particular attention to is that you want to make sure you get co-location on these sites and sharing on these sites, just like you would a macro cell, because these small wireless facilities will only transmit about 450 feet to a quarter mile. And what you will have happen, which we've seen with other clients, is that Verizon will want their own site, AT&T will want their own site, T-Mobile Sprint will want their own site. This is an image taken down the street from my coworker Elizabeth's house. And so it's a real site, it's a real deployment plan. And as you can tell, they're all non-concealed. They all look different. And the third one's proposed to go right here. And it's because the community doesn't have a proactive way to regulate this deployment pattern. So that's another thing we'll be looking at. And we get often asked, you know, are we going to see more macro cells, or are we going to see more small wireless facilities? Well, we really don't know that answer until we get into the propagation plan, but you're always going to need more macro cells because they're the more powerful cell that puts out the bigger signal, and it really is it remains the best way for them to get their coverage and some capacity out. But where you get into areas of your central business districts, where you have densification of residential, where you have areas of commercial and places where people gather for special events, you're going to see these small wireless facilities. And they're going to need those because they're not going to be able to put in as many macro cells in those areas as they need to provide that densification. So they're going to have to put in small wireless. So you're going to see an advent of small wireless deployments in your urban areas. In your rural or semi-urban rural areas, you're still going to see macro cells and a blend of small wireless. So here's a map of our overall study area and the sites that we assessed when we came up and did our assessments in October or November. You'll notice that we have sites outside the perimeter, and that is because we include sites within a 1 mile buffer around the entire geographic area. If we didn't include those sites, then we would have a distorted understanding of the propagation pattern in these areas. So we have to make sure that we include those. We have done our initial inventory mapping for Yorktown, and this is the map, one of 5 maps that I'm going to share with you that demonstrates in our study area, which includes the 1 mile perimeter, you have 21 towers and 6 base stations. If it's a proposed site or review or under review, it has a yellow highlight around it. You have a total of 18 sites in your actual boundary. You have 21 towers and again 6 in your study area.
These are all the larger towers, right?
It's a blend. Oh, actually, you're right, because this map actually talks about whether you have how many macro cells and small wireless facilities are in the study area.
Yeah.
And you're correct. All 27 are macro facilities. You don't have any small yet in your study area. Believe it or not, Somers does have 2, and Bedford has approved but has not had installed 3.
Of the small wireless facilities?
Of the small wireless facilities, yes. And again, this is looking at your sites and whether or not you have a variety of public safety or macro cells. And we did not look at any of your public safety sites because they didn't have any macro cells on them. They weren't in our inventory. And this is not a public safety study. It is simply the wireless side. So all 27 fit that description of the macro cell. Of the sites that we looked at, 18 of them are on private property. You have 1 inside the right-of-way and 4 are on private property. You also have a variety of sites in your utility easements. And of the sites that we inventoried, you have 4 that are considered concealed, 2 that are semi-concealed, and the rest are non-concealed. So I'm going to walk through those sites now. You have site Y1 is in your utility easement, and you can see the antenna on the infrastructure. Site Y2 is a very well done church steeple. We thought this was a very well done site.
I know it well. I might be a member there.
Oh, okay. Site Y3 and Y4 are actually on the same site. We do give them separate site numbers because it's easier to keep track of them that way. Y5 is another facility on your utility easement. Y6 is a monopole on the same site as the water tanks, which I will point out you've done a very good job consolidating the use of those water tank sites by also using them for wireless infrastructure. So you've done a really good job with that. Y7 is another monopole. Y8 is a base station rooftop mount. Y9, another monopole. Y10, one of your semi-concealed sites, foam monopine. Y11 and 12 monopoles. Again, you can see the use of your utility site here on Y12. Y13 is your monopole. You have a lattice tower at Y14, another monopole non-concealed at Y15. Y16 and Y17 are in the utility easement again, and Y18 is a new monopole. We are not positive, but we think that perhaps these sites are going, and these utility easements are going to be decommissioned and be replaced on this monopole because these same service providers are on this monopole, and the monopole is directly across from the utility easement. So we'll be doing some research on that to see if that is indeed the case. And if it is, then these sites will come down and be removed from the inventory, and we'll just keep this one. So just, yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Are you done? Because I have many questions, but I'm going to ask when you are done, okay?
Okay.
I'll let her finish her presentation, and then you can ask away, Councilman.
Okay, sure. I have just a few more slides. I wanted to just mention that when we get into the regulatory and the policy piece, and I'll get more in detail with this when we get to this point in our analysis, but you do still have authority to regulate the industry, provided you do not discriminate amongst the providers, provided you don't have any policies that prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting the service, that you act upon the request within a reasonable time frame as outlined in the most recent report and orders. And if you deny a request, that you provide that denial in writing with substantial evidence. And just a reminder, you cannot regulate the radio frequency emissions from these sites. The FCC maintains control on that. You can require that they provide a statement of compliance, but you can't regulate beyond that. There are facilities that you have approved through your prescribed review process, and those sites are now considered eligible facilities, which means that when a service provider comes in and they want to co-locate on that site, then you have to allow it through your administrative review process. And if they need to expand that compound or increase that height, they are allowed to, provided they do not exceed the definition of substantial change, which I will get more into later on in our process. So we'll be looking to make sure that those provisions are in your ordinance. And then I just also want to talk about the timeline because I referenced the newest report and orders. And so you know that when a new small wireless facility comes in, you have 10 days to review that for completeness. And if it is incomplete, you have to document in writing what is missing and get that to the applicant. And when you do that, the clock will stop. And when they revise their materials and resubmit them, you go back to day one and you get another 10 days to review that. If you are looking at a macro cell, it's a 30-day review period. And if you have an incomplete application, again, you have to provide everything in writing. The clock stops, but it tolls, meaning when they come back and resubmit, you pick up on the day that they left off. So if you reviewed that site and you got them their initial list of things that are incomplete on day 10 of the review, then when they resubmit, it becomes day 11. And your overall timelines have been consolidated. For a co-location of a small wireless facility that's going on an eligible structure, you have 60 days to review and permit that application or deny it. And you have 90 days for a co-location of a macro cell on an existing eligible review or eligible facility. If it's a brand new small wireless facility structure, it's 90 days and 150 days for a non-small wireless facility tower or new base station. So our next steps, after answering all and fielding all your questions, will be to get to you your revised inventory maps, because we continue to tweak them. Even after this presentation, I'll go back through and make sure I haven't noticed any changes. And we'll send you your first draft of the inventory. We will ask staff to verify the information, fill in the blanks. And once we receive the information back from Yorktown, that's when we will start the propagation modeling. We're not going to do it before then, because we have to make sure the site locations and the sites that we list are accurate. It's a costly project. It becomes a costly endeavor to keep changing the propagation maps because we add sites or remove them. So we have to make sure that we finalize that site list before we do anything else. Then we'll bring all that to you to look at. And like I mentioned, we'll take public comment, and then we'll prepare the final documents. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay, we're going to unleash Councilman Patel with his questions.
Let me tell you, I'm happy to tell you, but I'm going to say something bad too, okay? There are too many mixed matches, service provider, and large number of devices, interface. But I would like to ask you one thing. Just tell the people what is going to happen to increase the speed of the data, wireless, what will happen to all this cable, all the wires and like that, you know, I mean, they're going to go out of business, and, you know, the competitions and all that. So this is very good. If you have a business and, you know, your needs are very high, you know, the data transfer and like that, then it's really great, because this is the kind of thing. And another thing I would like to ask you is, you know, the town has a 4 antenna right now. I don't know how much we are using and all that. Can we use those antennas, or maybe changing the elements for our town benefits alone? See, there are too many questions. So if you like to do some kind of a public low-tech presentation, would be much more, you know, beneficial to even most of the people, because I don't know how many people would, you know, digest, because this is the filet mignon and Chateaubriand and, you know, salmon, everything all again at the same time, you know. So you mentioned about the bill and the tip and the wine and all that. So dessert is not included. Thank you. Is there any general comment on this one for ordinary people? You know, I mean, just we are all ordinary people, and tell the benefits, you know, 5G,
yeah,
6G.
point,
Yeah. I mean, it just.
Why do people in the town of Yorktown want to see this completed?
Absolutely, yeah. I agree, because there are many people, moving more towards this side of the county and business and high-speed communications. So that will reduce the traffic on the highways and byways. But you're going to need kind of antenna, and I don't know how you can, the weather, the storms and all these things may help continue power supply as well as communication. So it's good thing, But do we need all this fancy thing for all the people? You should tell them. Schools and other government officials, the industry, they will have a big benefits. So in that way, maybe smallest presentation you can just give to somebody, or maybe small video or something, put it over all the town. And what are the benefits? I mean, something like this would be very nice. Then they can digest it. I mean, it's just this is very complicated. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We do have a survey that we will be sending out to you to share with your community for them to provide feedback. And what we can work on doing is providing a few slides prior to that addresses these comments. That type of information will definitely be in the master plan, but I agree having some slides that promote the purpose of the infrastructure. But at the same time, we're unbiased, and we know that some communities that we work in, especially like, for example, Lewisboro and Bedford, they're very concerned about the number and they want to keep it to a minimum. And so, we don't want to come across as promoting something without knowing the concerns of the community. We don't want to overstep our bounds. But we will definitely talk about the purpose. We can make it user-friendly, and we'll put it before the survey. I think you'll be real pleased.
Be great.
But then, the weather effects, the cloudy, the rainy, the snow,
yes,
their interference and all these things, because it's a chilly today and a hot tamale, okay? That kind of weather forecast come and go,
Yes. We know. We were up there. We saw it firsthand.
Yeah, I want to thank you folks for your presentation. It never ceases to amaze me that no matter how few or how many cell towers are out there, either people are complaining that they have no service or there's too many cell towers. Well, which way do you want it? Do you want to have service, or do you not want cell towers?
Absolutely true.
It's such an interesting phenomenon. It's the old NIMBY attitude, not in my backyard. But there's not anybody not walking around with one of these in their hand and wanting to use it at a moment's notice. So, they're the light pole things that you guys showed there. They're almost attractive. They kind of fit into the landscape of the individual towns. So it's definitely interesting. Thank you.
And I think we take it for granted that I pick up my phone and I'm going to be able to call. And I would have never thought about something like this. Thank you for doing this for our community.
I can't talk to Alice on her cell phone in her house, so I want a tower in your backyard.
You can't talk to me in my house either. There,
That's right. That's right.
I have to be outside.
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, we had a period where one of the major poles was out in town for AT&T.
Yeah.
You couldn't get reception in the whole center of town past the police station, and they're going to be replacing a lot of the receivers for 5G, so that's going to be an issue as well. So definitely good to get ahead of the curve here.
I wish they'd get 4G straightened out first. Let's move up one more notch.
Unfortunately,
how about the security? It's another very serious, issue. I mean, we have not seen even what will happen, what might happen. Any comment?
Are you talking about security at the site, like
physical, physical as well as electronic, interference and a very big problem. I can tell you that.
Yes. Okay. I will make sure that we address something like that in our slides.
Yeah. One of the things to keep in mind is that this technology is not going anywhere anytime soon. It's only going to be more and more in demand as more devices and different applications are being developed every single day. The autonomous cars that is the wave of the future, and it all needs to run with wireless infrastructure. So this plan will set you up for the projected future. I mean, what we do is with our projections is we project out for the next 10 years of where infrastructure is going to be needed. And like Susan said, we don't have, a pony in the race. So we are just going to give you the information as we have it based on our experience, based on the technology and the new trends that are coming. So you'll be prepared for it as it evolves.
Very helpful. Very helpful. John Tater, any comments or questions from your standpoint?
I don't. I'm looking forward to the next few steps. So, where we can put them, and further information on what we have. So, looking forward to that.
Excellent.
I have to tell you one thing. That first phone that we saw, I guess it was, I don't remember what year. I remember being in California and this man was at this table in this restaurant with this phone. And I remember just laughing at him. It looked so bizarre.
Tommy, don't go. Councilman Diana, don't. I see you, Councilman Diana. He's trying to make.
I had one.
Yes.
I bought it at Radio Shack. Honest to
So
God.
bizarre.
I saw that phone. I had a flashback.
It's funny, Alice, if you rewatch the Lethal Weapon, Danny Glover is using one of them. So
Oh, that's funny.
It was a great phone. It really was. There weren't enough towers, but it was a great phone.
Good. Well, we're looking forward to the next step in the process. We appreciate your time and your presentation tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you. Have
much.
a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. We're going to move on to our water district conversation. We're going to be joined by our water superintendent, Kenny Rundle, and Jeff Dalkey. See Ken. Do we have Jeff? Jeff's connecting. There's Ken.
There's Ken.
Hello. Good evening.
Hi, Ken.
Ken. Good evening.
Mr. Rundle, how are you?
Good. After a year or so, I finally figured out Zoom.
There you go.
Took me a little bit, but we're there.
Good.
So-
and I know, do we have Jeff? Is Jeff on? I see that he's here, but I don't know. I don't hear him or see him.
Muted still.
He's still muted. Well, I don't want to delay if it's okay, Ken.
No, that's fine.
So I asked our water superintendent to come discuss the Q1 lab reports that the town board received. There's Jeff. Hey Jeff, how are you? If you can just unmute yourself, that'd be great. Might be your bottom left of your screen there, a little microphone. Bless you.
God bless Ed.
Bless you.
Sorry.
You know, Ed, when you did that, your hair stood straight up. I don't know what that was all about.
The first thing I'm doing out of quarantine is going for a haircut. It looks like Grandpa Al Lewis the other day.
Yeah. I was thinking on like Back to the Future, you know.
There you go. I don't have a coat.
I'm sorry. Diana, can you unmute Jeff or send him the request?
All right. What about now?
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. Perfect.
Success.
Perfect. Well, Jeff Dalkey oversees our water testing for the town. Does a fantastic job of it. So as I was saying, we did receive our Q1 water testing report for 2021. And I was hoping that you gentlemen could educate not just the board, but the public on what the results were. and how we are doing with regard to the violation that we've been enduring since May of last year.
Sure. Supervisor, thanks for having us on tonight, and appreciate your time. I know you have a busy agenda, so we'll try to keep it short and sweet. If okay with the board, I'd like to give a brief overview of what happened. Then I'm going to ask Jeff to come in and expand on it further, because Jeff has been working on this issue that we've had from the beginning. Like the supervisor said, Jeff does our water quality control in the lab and does a fantastic job.
Yes, he does.
So back in 2020, May of 2020, we do disinfection byproduct sampling quarterly. We had one high read that was kind of off the charts. I was of the opinion, and I'm not going to speak for Jeff, but I believe Jeff was of the opinion that this read that came back, it was so far off the charts. I believe that it was an error, but we still have to caution on the side of safety and still go through the protocols. What I would like to add is, and I think I mentioned this to the board one time before, a day or two after we received notice of that high reading, we went back and resampled it, and the sample was well within acceptable guideline limits, or the range, I should say. So at that point, so the water sample that we got was from the R&R building behind the police station. So I just like to keep everybody, keep it in the back of your mind, was the sample was taken in May of 2020. The town, due to the COVID-19 we were living through, the town workforce was at a reduced staff. So there's a 6-inch line that comes in off of Route 202, goes down and feeds the R&R building, the central garage. And that's an oversized line because of the fire sprinklers. So it's designed to, God forbid if there's a fire there, that's why that pipe is so big. But my point about it is there was probably 2 people working because we were reduced staffed in that office drawing water. So the disinfection byproduct, it's a residual it's a byproduct from chlorine. So there was not a lot of water being used through that line. Again, we sampled it 2 days later, and it was within limits. So Jeff and I discussed it further, and we discussed it with the supervisor. We felt that sample was not really it's not a fair comparison of what the residents are getting out in the distribution system. So we installed a new water sample tap on the corner of the driveway right by the PD, and we're taking our samples from there as of late, which all of the samples that Jeff has been doing, all our readings are coming in fine, well below limits, in some cases non-detectable. But this one average, it's an annual running average. So our May 2020 reading is still escalating our numbers, but thankfully that this is the last quarter, so that will drop off, and we should be fine moving forward. I think at this point, I'm going to ask Jeff to expand on it a little bit. I'm sure I didn't cover everything because there's a lot of moving parts to this sampling and all the chemical names and the disinfection byproducts. And so I'm going to ask Jeff if he would mind just sharing with the board a little bit. And if the board has any questions for Jeff or myself, please.
You forgot to say hello acetate. That's the byproduct. I asked you to write it down, okay?
As long as you didn't ask me to spell it.
No. No, the next day I got it, phone call from Mount Kisco, and they were really, happy that, it has gone down. It was only one time shortened thing. But when you read somewhere else in the newspaper or somewhere else, people, hey, Yorktown water is no good, Bottled water is the worst in Yorktown. Don't worry about it, okay? I have a proof.
That's exactly why we wanted them here, so they can let the board know and the public know what the real situation is. Jeff, why don't you jump in here and let us know what's going on?
Okay. I think Ken summed it up pretty well. It's this running annual average, and that's why we have the violation. This is our fourth quarter, so we'll be out of violation when we go to read there this coming May. Will be first quarter. I'm sorry, second quarter of the year. But the main thing is the haloxylic acids are one of the possible disinfection byproducts that can result. You don't always have them. The one out of the 5 acids that we test for was the one that is high. Every other test we've had for that, it's close to undetectable. It's below 2 parts per billion. This was 181 parts per billion. So that's why it throws the annual average off.
Right.
As far as the notifications that go out, there's a lot of information in there. A lot of it's mandatory information from the New York State Department of Health. But we do get some calls back on our notices. But the important thing is that the disinfectant byproducts, as far as a health issue, EPA says there may be, according to some studies, it's not a definitive thing. And also that would only be if they were at elevated levels and you drank that water 20 to 30 years. Some studies suggest, is the actual language, that there could be a health concern. Probably 40 years of testing this in Yorktown, it's below 2 parts per billion, which is as low as the outdoor. We don't do it in-house. It's an outdoor lab. That's as low as they can measure. So it's never been an issue, and it immediately went right back to our traditionally very low levels. And as Ken mentioned, just as a preventative measure with the sampling station, we're sampling water more indicative of the water main on 202 than in a stagnant 800-foot water main, which can cause the interaction or the reaction is with disinfectant being chlorine and organics. So you can get organics building up in a main that doesn't have volume of water going through it to begin with, only about 500 gallons a week, and then it was reduced to 250. The average person will use 100 gallons of water a day. The entire building was using 500 per week down to 250. So it's essentially a dead main during that COVID shutdown. And even with the low flows prior to that, it was never an issue. So anyhow, we're past that point. We just sent in the paperwork for the last violation. That should be the last one. And we won't have the need to send any notifications out to the public. So we won't have, no need to get them concerned unduly. So we're in good shape.
Good.
May I say something? How many times the lines were flush after, each measurement? Because that would give a really very good indication in the reductions of number of, haloacidate. Because, so do you have any record that you have continuously, because it's a very small area, it can be flushed out?
We do. The whole system is flushed. Takes about 1.5 years. So we use the fire hydrants. We flush the water out through the dead ends. One of the reasons we do that is in case there's any buildup of biofilm, which is an organic that can exist, that gets cleaned out. So Yorktown has always had a flushing program. We're getting ready to start up spring. It does take, it's about 1,700 fire hydrants. So it takes spring, fall, and spring to do the entire town. But you cannot flush immediately prior to at a sample site with health department regulations. So you want it to be representative of what the water is normally. You can't cook the books by flushing immediately prior to it. But again, 30, 40 years of doing it at that particular site, it's never been an issue. And it's always the same 4 sites to represent the town that's established through the EPA number of decades ago. So we can't alter the site. So we're on the same parcel, but instead of 800 feet down the road, so to speak, sampling from a slop sink in a garage, right, we're getting it within 25 feet or so. And really the difference hasn't been that much. I think it was just a scenario of the shutdown that may have caused it if it were legitimate, but we're right back to what we've always had, which is low disinfection byproducts, as long as we keep the same source water. We've only had one issue in the past, which was in 2018, and we had to introduce peak spill water. So it wasn't at the same level of violation. It was just an exceedance that we had to do paperwork with the state. Otherwise, when we have our 2 plants running, feeding Yorktown, never an issue.
So the temperature also impact, like a winter time is a low reaction rate, and May, like that kind of time, the temperature can increase the rate of reaction from the halogen to any byproduct bacteria in the water, and when you don't use it, you can smell, that even at home, when you come back on a vacation, you can smell it, so it's a similar thing,
Yep. Yes.
So just again, and the real reason I just wanted to A, educate the board, B, educate the public, and just reassure the public, once again, you're going to get the notification again. That notification is required by the Department of Health. We did, by the way, advocate to the Department of Health, as did the Northern Westchester Joint Waterworks, that there was no need for these notifications because of the fact that I think, collectively believe this was an outlier test based on the circumstances. Regardless, the Department of Health is requiring these notifications to go out. When you get the notification, and again, this is why we ask these gentlemen here, it is to make sure you understand that there is no contaminated water in the town of Yorktown. It was an outlier test. Our water, to Councilman Patel's point earlier, is even better than bottled. Right, Councilman Patel?
Yes, as those students, last 2 years, they have really testified, themselves that $7 worth of water, if you bottle it on yourself, you can make a 700 to 1,500, depending on where you buy the water bottle, So that Yorktown water considered is good, according to the purification process. Yeah. And, yes, we have old pipes and all that. So, maybe some sediment comes once in a while when the water lines are, either broken or something flushed out like that. But they're safe water to drink it because I have no bottled water in my house, okay? I don't buy it. Somebody gave me, it's okay, I put it in a garage and maybe use some time. But I'm very sure that Yorktown is good water.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would like to add that when we do these mailings quarterly, it's approximately 10,000 addresses that we send to in Yorktown, all customers of Yorktown Water District. And perhaps about each quarter, I'll get between 5 and 10 people having questions of what they saw in the notice. But the vast majority of people, the needed information is in that notice. And they don't have questions after reading it. But the few that we have, we address it. And they're very pleased to be able to speak to someone and ask them.
Yeah,
and get the answers directly. And they've been very understanding that it's just a numbers thing, quarterly with the average, and in general, there've been very few questions, which was nice to see. The information is put out there in that notice, and people are getting it, and then we're on our way.
Jeff, if somebody has a question that they'd like to ask you about this, what's the best number for them to call?
Best number would be call the Yorktown Water Department at 245-6111, and the Water Quality Lab is extension 231.
Excellent.
All right.
Any questions from the board? No?
Thank you for your follow-up on this, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
If I could just add one thing.
Yep. Yes, Ken, please. Ken?
Where'd he go?
Okay, so one thing I'd just like to bring to the board's attention about the mailing. That mailing costs the district about $5,000 per mailing. Okay, so we're into this for about $20,000 that we were not budgeting for. And the second point of it is that I wanted to make was, so when Jeff was saying that folks use about 100 gallons per day, that's true. And they were using, let's say 200 over there at the R&R building. But there's one slight difference. The folks that are using 100 gallons per day in their house, their water line is a 3/4 inch size water line. This is a 6-inch water line. So the water in the service line for your homes travels much, it flows through there quicker than sitting in a big pipe. But I would like to say, please, if anybody has any questions about the water or quality of water or anything related, we are here for our residents 24/7, 365. You can always reach out to Jeff or myself. Mine is 245-6111. I'm at extension 233. And please be assured, Jeff is out there working diligently every single day, making all kinds of tests and checking our water. So we're in good shape.
Right. Hey, Kenny, one thing just as a clarification.
Yes, Jeff.
The water usage that you're mentioning, Ken, that particular town building, that was down to 250 gallons per week. An individual will use 100 gallons per day. So it shows you how little
Sure.
water they
Right.
were using.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, it's 800 foot and 6-inch diameter. So that's a lot of stagnant water.
Right.
So isolate it to just that.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
And
Okay,
Kenny, you
Jeff,
post this
thank
on the
you very much.
website too, correct?
I'm sorry?
Do you guys post this on the town and or water department website?
We have it on there and we repost because it's a new notification every quarter.
Great.
And we send certification to the health department that we mail it. We have it on the town website. We have it on the water website. And then systems that join our system, Cortland, Somers, et cetera, consecutive systems, we have to email them and send them a hard copy each quarter. And we just finished that process. I worked with Kenny yesterday and that's in. So that should be our last certification.
Yep.
Okay.
Very good, guys. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Thank
Great
you.
work. Thank you all very much.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we're going to go on to our next item on the agenda. We're going to welcome Kristen Shearer. Kristen, how are you?
Hey guys, how's everyone doing?
Hi,
We're
Kristen.
Good. We're very excited to hear that the Battle of Yorktown is coming back.
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. Why don't you tell us about how we're going to do it this year?
So it's an event that we hold every year in recognition of Earth Day. This is actually going to be our 32nd
Wow.
Yorktown. So we've been doing pretty good, and I just have some stats from the previous year, just to show how successful this event is when it does run. Obviously, from last year with COVID, we couldn't do it, but in 2019, about 1,000 bags of trash were picked up, along with miscellaneous other items that residents find. We had about 656 volunteers, 98 groups, and all of those bags that all those groups and participants picked up added up to over 9 tons of trash.
Unbelievable.
Insane. So we just ask that people, if they can carve out an hour or two, the event is going to be on April 24th, Saturday the 24th. We just ask that you give our office a call, stop by, register. We just like to get an idea of the amount of people. We want to give you bags, give you vests, give you all the supplies that you could possibly need to help pitch in. And our phone number for people to call is 914-245-4438.
Kristen, this is great. And this is something that we've been battling.
Yeah.
That we've been battling throughout COVID.
Yeah.
And to bring this back, I think is so important to be able to do this in a very safe way, by the way,
Yes.
in a COVID compliant way.
Yes.
But, you know, as you drive around town, obviously litter has been something that this town board has continued to talk about and raise awareness on. And we heard from Chief Noble earlier today that we were able to squash one of our litter bugs over on Decatur Road with the good use of our code enforcement, our increased litter camera inventory, and of course our great Yorktown Police Department. So this is just another step in that process. I also want to let the board and the residents know that we did also send out those letters to the commercial property owners, including the property maintenance code, so they have it.
Okay.
That was completed today. So I know we have our. You're very well. Well, thank you to the board. I know we have our building inspector with us, John Landy. I see him in the corner there. So our commercial property owners, again, were notified of their responsibilities when it comes to keeping their parking lots clean and obviously adhering to the code. And that was something that we came up with thanks to our good friend Dan Strauss, who's out there every day picking up trash, especially in the Heights Hamlet.
Yes.
But the Battle of Yorktown event's always great. I was able to participate a number of times with several Boy Scout troops. And so for anyone looking to give back to our community next month, it's a great event and a great way to help us with a little spring cleanup for the town of Yorktown.
Exactly.
Hey, Matt, I think you're going to have to help this year, Matt.
What's that, Ed?
You're probably going to have to help the Lions this year.
Oh, yeah? That's usually your place over there.
I will be there.
All right. Well, Kristen, I think you got a volunteer up in Councilman Lachterman, so you can put the lines down if you haven't already.
Mark you down.
All right. Well, listen, we appreciate you taking this over. I know Kim Inglis Gage, this is usually her show.
Yeah.
It's our first time trying this without her, and we hope she's watching and hope she's doing well and enjoying retirement.
Yes,
but
I believe she is. So.
Good. But we're very confident that you're going to do a great job and know that the town board supports us wholeheartedly. So if there's anything that we can do, just let us know. Councilman Patel?
Let me just scare the people. It costs $250 million plus to remove the roadside trash in the United States, really.
Yes.
You know? It's a lot of money, and how much air, water, and in the ground pollution, which impacts our quality of life. So, it is not. And then look at, you cannot believe that most of the product I had not even known. When I collected, I learned new things. What was this pet for, And people throw away the whole bottle with the water itself. It's very heavy to lift it up and put it in a bag. I can't even open the can. And I have seen a lot of bourbon bottle and beer, and God bless you. So please, this is your air goes in your lungs, and the water goes in your mouth and the stomach. And it's really not very visually pollution. It's a very bad visual pollution we are creating ourselves. And we are dumping on the Mother Earth, kick off your mother, because this is the only one left in the world for us to enjoy and be safe and help us out. Every can costs money. Most of the aluminum comes from south part of the world. Mm-hmm. It costs 10 cents to manufacture one can. If you throw away, you're throwing away 10 cents. So if you recycle it, it'll cost you maybe less than a penny, So be kind to the earth, because the food comes from there, the water comes from there, and it's help us. We cannot live without potable water in the world, because only 0.1% of the water on the surface of the earth is all in the southern part of the earth, and it's a frozen area, and the rain comes and all that. If you pollute, we are polluting our water, what we are drinking every day. So please help us. Everybody can do something, and be kind to Earth. Earth Day is coming also soon. Thank you.
You can just do the property in your own neighborhood. You don't have to go beyond that, right?
Yeah. You can do anywhere you want, and we'll make suggestions if you need suggestions as well. Because we do have certain areas that are frequented with more litter than other areas.
Yeah.
That we could really use some help with. So anybody can just give us a call, and we'll help you out if you need an area.
I always found it interesting when you drive down the street the day before, you see the litter on the side of the road, and then the next day it looks like Ajax was here. It doesn't take much to make it look nice.
Exactly. Yeah, our volunteers do a great job every year. So we appreciate it too.
Excellent. Kristen, thank you. We appreciate your time.
I actually had one last question. I have been asked a couple times about the mobile shredder. I know we're set up for October, but as things start opening up a little more, is there any chance to try to get something sooner, or do you think October is going to be?
We have an April event as well. I believe it's the last Friday in April. I'd have to check the calendar again, but it is on our website on the refuse calendar.
Okay, fantastic.
So people can always go there. But yes, we do have the two events, one in April, one in October.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's on the county too. I missed it when I was looking.
Oh, that's all right.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Kristen.
All right. Have a
great
good night.
Thanks.
Good night, Kristen.
Thank you.
We'll go over to John Landy, our building inspector. Good evening, John. If you want to unmute yourself, that'd be great.
Good evening.
So last year, what we did in the summer in response to COVID was suspend the permitting fees for outdoor dining and sidewalk cafes. It said sidewalk. The agenda says sidewalk permits, but it's sidewalk cafes to allow retail to sell their merchandise, to put tables outside.
Correct.
So we wanted to, John and I had a conversation about reinstating that suspension for 2021, especially as the weather gets nicer, and especially for our restaurants and our retailers. And so we wanted to bring it to the town board.
I thought it was a good idea last year. Let's do it again. I'll motion it.
Motion. We have a second from Councilman Lachterman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we will be suspending the outdoor dining permitting fees and the sidewalk cafe. Is that what we call them? Sidewalk cafe, John?
I thought we just called it sidewalk sales.
Sidewalk sale permit fees for the
tent fees.
And 10 fees for the remaining of 2021.
Correct.
Okay.
We made it special, just so if anybody's watching, we made a special permit application. The instructions are on the website under building department, so they can fill it out. I'll still run over there, take a look at it. I'm getting a lot of calls, so the board knows that people want to continue doing it, even though restaurants are opening inside. They want to continue outside.
Outdoor dining.
Yeah, patrons.
I thought it was such a great idea. It's such a success last year. I think it's great.
Yeah, I believe the mall is even applied for 2 big tents because they want to bring a lot of activities out into their parking lot. So that's going to get going. A lot of exciting things coming.
Excellent.
Great. Councilman Patel?
Yes, but, we also don't forget that we continuously, worried about the health and well-being of all the people. Those are the vendors and those are the customer, because this virus issue will continue. So we are going to be monitoring health and well-being of all the people, whether they are customer or vendors and like that. So we always remind them just to be safe and, continue to follow the health regulations for you, yourself, and your community and loved ones.
I do believe that's why they want to do it outside. Everybody feels safer, and it's a great idea.
I agree. I felt very safe last year, and we'll probably do the same thing again this year.
Now, John, just one more point of clarification. You do still do an inspection. You do a safety inspection, so you make sure that they're not obviously putting out tables in the middle of roadways or any place that might be dangerous. And so that's going to continue, obviously.
That will continue, and I will also revisit everyone who had a permit last year, make sure they know that it will continue this year, do another inspection, make sure they're in the same spots, make sure everything's the same, and just let it continue.
Perfect. Great. Any questions from the board for John? No? All right. Then, John, you have a great night. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a great night. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Okay. We're going to move on to Extra Fuels, located at 1917 Commerce Street. This is the former BP gas station. We're going to welcome back our Director of Planning, John Tegeter. As everyone remembers, this applicant is Al. Is Al there? Al Whiting?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, Al.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Al, you were before the board previously?
Yes.
Yes.
And we had discussed your monument sign.
Yes, this site is a BP station being converted to Extra Fuels. And you might remember that we had proposed replacing the BP cabinet and using the existing single pole. And the town thought that we could do better than that. I agree. And they were looking for something with a little bit more style along the lines of a monument type of sign. So after a few back and forth with John, we seem to have settled on a twin pole sign. Do you see it there? Do you have a picture of it, drawing?
No.
John, do you want to share your screen?
Sure.
Look good.
Do you see that?
Yes.
There.
Okay, so this is the existing sign, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, Al, it's about 21 feet high to the top of the cabinet. They had proposed I believe, 16-foot sign on the single pole. After Al and I had collaborated together, we came up with the sign that you see to the right there, which is, I think, 11 feet high overall. So it's lower. And it has about, I think it's 42 square feet of signage within the bounds of the two poles and the cap. So that is 12 square feet over what is in the code, but as you know, you have the ability to modify that somewhat. So you could modify this. I thought that this does replicate. It's not quite the exact type of monument sign that you would normally see with a base, but certainly from most of the vantage points as you're driving up and down, you will essentially see what appears to be a monument sign to you. So I think it came off pretty well, and I do appreciate Al and his team offering the little trim up at the top. I think it makes it look that much better.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. John,
simple but nice.
John, from a size standpoint, since we just had this conversation recently with an applicant up in Sherwood Oak, are they within the parameters of the code?
Can I ask you something?
From which application?
From the Getty Station, up in Sherwood Oak. You know how we had to go.
Yes, Getty Station went down to a maximum. Their sign is 30 square feet. This is 42. Getty was at, I think, 58 or 59 square feet when they first proposed their first sign to you. So This is 12 square feet over.
And I'm just making sure that it adheres to the code.
Mm-hmm.
It's 12 square feet over the maximum that's in the code.
The maximum.
Yes.
But that's considerably under what it was before, right?
Well, it was much higher, which was out, and then the cabinet, I recall, was close to 30. I think it was a little bit more, right, Al?
Yeah, just slightly over 30. Yeah.
Okay. But what I asked Al to do is, since we are essentially trying to get to a monument sign, I said, I think that you'll be better served if you add another box there to make it look a little bit more solid and reduce the appearance of the spindly legs. So that's my suggestion, and I think it comes off better rather than having you don't have to produce the base because I think I walked it and I drove it a couple of times, and I think the height is very good, and also that the visibility really, I don't think you need the base in this situation. I think it will come off very nice. So
okay. I have a question. I don't like their price. $8.88 and 9/10 a gallon, or the.
Well, he could tell you what it could be.
couple
That's
more
where
years.
It's going to go,
Vishnu.
Over there I mean, I thought this is maybe the gold coated droplets of the gasoline.
No, we'll stop another pipeline.
Have a little fun, right?
Yep. So on the. I know that we had talked about a little bit about the building signs, and Al had wondered, what to do about them. I know that they are proposing to paint the building to come into the color scheme, which I think brings up the issues of the building signs. First of all, they have a lot of service signs. In other words, we do this kind of work, we do that kind of work. You're only allowed 10 square feet of that stuff, so it looks a little busy. So my proposal is that you can move forward with this sign, but ask them to come in and show a rendering and sort of get closer in line to the signage manual with those signs that are on the building.
Yes.
I would agree with that, John.
Al, is that okay?
Yes, that's fine. We can do that, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's much easier, and if they can get started on this, which is a little bit more involved construction, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Hey, John,
you with that? Al?
Pardon me?
You're okay with that? If we?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yep. The owner of the site and the oil company have been cooperating with me along the way, so I don't see that as a problem at all.
Okay.
John, just one more time. The sign overall dimension is how far over what code says?
In terms of square footage of the signs itself,
right,
it's 12 square feet over.
All right. What was the one we just did out in Shrub Oak again? Refresh my memory. I know somebody just said this, but I just want to.
I think they originally came in. It was in the 50s, the mid to upper 50s in square footage.
Right.
And it was 14 feet high as a monument sign. Remember?
Yeah.
And what they did is they lowered it to about 11, but their square footage of signage is right at 30, so they're completely compliant. Now they did a monument sign. They have a base, a masonry base. This one did not, and so I suggested to Al to fill up this area a little bit. I suggested to put in a little bit more of a box, so it's a little bit more solid, and you don't really get the sense of the spindly legs on the bottom as much.
Oh, so like adding the auto repair or whatever there to make it.
Exactly.
All right. So that actually probably the extra fuels with regular at $8.88, which is probably where it's going to go.
Don't say that.
That would have been probably your 30 square feet, right? Or approximately.
Yes. The extra fuels and the price sign is the 30 square feet.
Okay. I see what you're doing. Okay. Very good.
John, can I ask a question about these signs?
Sure.
It just seems to me that depending on what street and what area a gas station is located on, there might be the size of the sign might differentiate. This gas station is on a local street. Some of them are on Route 6. The Getty is off of Route 6. It just seems that they should not be one size fit all.
Right. I agree. I agree with that wholeheartedly. You have to look at the context in which the sign is being placed and the context in which the gas station exists.
Yeah.
You know, the tall signs were for competition. So, you know, you could see far away. If you saw gas station A first, gas station B wants to be high so you can see them. There's no competition on this road except all the way down at the corner. And so I think lowering it makes sense. It still will be quite visible, but it will not be competing with the high light poles and so on and so forth. So I think it's going to be much more attractive.
It actually it's in a hamlet, so it's actually a lot nicer than that big pole.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can do, if you like, a resolution for next Tuesday.
Yes.
I'm fine with that. If there's no other objections from the board, we'll pass it next Tuesday for the monument sign, and then they'll continue to work with our planning department on the signage issues that they still have on the building itself.
Yeah.
Okay. No objection. Then that's what we'll do. Al, you're good?
I'm good with that. Thank you all very much.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Al. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Good night, John.
Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, next we got Jim Moderano, Parks and Rec Superintendent. And I see we've got our Parks and Rec Commissioner, Matt Talbert. Jimmy wants to talk about the 2021 summer camp season that is hopefully going to be upon us soon. Jimmy, take it away.
Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to take an opportunity to talk about our summer camps. So last year, as you all know, we couldn't run our camps due to COVID-19, but we're very excited to run our full day and half day offerings this year. Unfortunately, the travel camp, due to Department of Health guidelines, it's just going to be too hard and difficult to run travel camp. So there won't be any travel camp for the 2021 season, but we do hope to run that program in years to come. Our full day programs are going to take place at Ben Franklin and Mohansick, and we're still looking at different options for our half day program. So parents should know that. Our signups are going to be April 1st at 9:30 a.m. If you haven't already and you're looking to sign up for camp, make sure as a parent you're going onto our online portal on Community Pass. You can find that on yorktownny.org / Parks and Recreation, or just by simply going to the home screen, scrolling down, looking for Parks and Rec. And then you'll go to the online registration portal, which is highlighted in blue. And we also have a special, just to make things easier for parents, I know how hard it is, a special window with specific information on how to sign up for camp, kind of a step-by-step instruction. So we're going to take registration first, and then there's some Department of Health paperwork that you do need to fill out. We'll handle that after the fact, once you're signed up, between when you sign up and when camp starts. We are going to have, unfortunately, some closings as far as the amount of kids we can take on this year due to those Department of Health standards. And what it's going to come down to, make sure you still get on our waiting list if you're interested in this, is the staffing, because it's going to be groups of only 12 kids per the Department of Health. They're calling them pods. They're just normally camp groups. And so it's going to be a 12-3 ratio. And to have more of these pods, we're going to have more counselors.
Sure.
So we have to have almost double the amount of counselors that we normally have in a normal summer with relatively the same amount of kids. So that's one thing I did want to bring up to the town board as well is, if we're anticipating huge numbers, more than previous summers. There's been a downward trend in day camps with specialized sports and also travel camps, those being more popular. But I think now with COVID, parents want their kids home, and that's what we're hearing from other municipalities as well, that they're getting, more registration than in normal years. So that's something that I wanted to bring to your attention as well, that we will be trying to hire more counselors this year. And any parents out there of teenagers that are 16 and above, please get the word out that we will be hiring more counselors.
Jimmy, what are the precautions you're taking for these young people?
Yep. So the Department of Health has a whole laundry list of things that we have to do. But one of the bigger ones, obviously, is mask wearing. So kids will be wearing masks at all times, but similar to school, they will be having their mask breaks. So we'll be aware of that. These pods and groups, we have to keep them separated throughout the day. So they'll be doing their normal activities, but they won't be commingling within their pods of 15.
Okay.
A lot of the programming will take place outside. Another expense that we wouldn't have in normal summers, we're looking to get big tents similar to the ones that you'll see at the Grange Fair. So a lot of the programs that normally go on in the gym would be under the big tent. But we will have some access if it rains inside in the gym and auditorium of these elementary schools. One thing that parents should also be aware of, if there's a huge thunderstorm, we can't keep the kids inside all day. So we would treat it almost as like a snow day at school, where we would tell the parents and email the parents that camp would be canceled that following day due to that big thunderstorm.
Are you asking for more money?
Not at the moment, but I certainly can be. I really need to see what the registration is. But you know me, I like to come to you before a problem is quite here to warn you that something could be coming. So we need to see where registration is come April 1st, and then take it from there.
And then ask for more money.
Exactly.
Well, I hope
the other thing I did want to mention as well, pools is something that we need to make a decision on. Due to the Department of Health, you can only send the kids in one pod at a time, so the 15 kids at a time. Normally, we would pack the kids into one bus and send them all to the pool. So under that model, we could probably only allow for kids to swim one day out of the week, opposed to 5. So we need to make a decision whether we're going to have pools and then swim once a week or not swim at all. I think it is important for a lot of the younger kids to get to the pool and get their swim lessons that they normally get, during camp. But, is it going to be worth it? Are they going to learn much from one day at the pool a week? So that's something that we're looking into right now. One thing I definitely want to do is one of their periods throughout the day is to have a splash zone, as we're calling it, where we're going to get a bunch of splash features and have a lot of fun in the sun with little water games, which is not something we normally do.
Have you heard from any parents on whether or not they want their kids to go to the pool?
Definitely a mixed message. Some parents really expressed displeasure on having their kids in the bus at all. And other parents did say that they wanted them to go to the pool if the option was only once, they would love that, even that. But it's kind of a mixed bag. So I'm not sure if there's a standard answer. So
how
far.
would you separate the group? Let's say you do have parents wanting some of them to go and others not. How would you work that out?
That would be very difficult because those pods, as I mentioned, you really wouldn't be able to break those up. You would imagine, since you have 3 counselors to each group, you would have to take probably one counselor, leave them back at the camp, and then the other 2 would go with the group to the pool. That'd probably be the best way to go about that. But valid question. Any other questions, guys?
No.
So April 1st, 9:30 a.m. If you're a parent out there, make sure you're logged on. And if you want to call ahead and just verify your address with us, so you're not stuck in a waiting queue, by all means, give us a call and we can help you verify your address prior to the start of signups.
Okay. I hope you enjoy your summer.
Yes, it should be a fun one. We're happy to get back out there and run camps again.
Yeah.
And pools at full strength.
Yes.
Jim, is your Easter egg hunt all sold out?
Yeah, great plug, Matt. So we are still accepting kids on the waiting list right now. So I urge parents to sign up on that waiting list. We're going to pull a few of those in the AM and 10 AM sessions. So if you're still interested, please go on a Community Pass and sign up for those sessions. There's still some room there. And also we have our egg decorating contest. So if you follow us on Facebook, please check that out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Have your kids decorate the eggs and then send us a direct message or email ypr@yorktownny.org to register.
Great.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you
so much, guys.
Appreciate it, guys.
Take care. Bye.
Okay. We're going to go talk about Climate Smart Communities Task Force. We have 2 of our members. We have Bob DeAngelis and Sarah Wilson joining us. Good evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
I'm board.
Good evening.
Later.
Hey, Bob.
Do we know if we have anybody else from the task force joining us tonight? I know we're actually ahead of schedule, so I don't want to jinx myself, but this is what happens.
Unusual situation.
I'm impressed.
Yeah. I know that that you all are working very diligently to try to meet the April deadline for certification. I know that there's been some emails back and forth, by the way, with Sustainable Westchester on their community solar presentation that they're willing to do that we're putting together for next week. So that is moving forward. So we got that done as well. But I know that we're very, very close with the points, and I appreciate all your work. You want to begin with your presentation?
Absolutely. Can I share screen? Okay, let me see.
Yeah, you're good.
Yes. Okay. Everybody see that okay?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Climate Smart Communities Task Force and also about what the town is doing and what residents can do to reduce their carbon footprint. We've been in place for about a year now. Swarnoff Pajeri is our chair. I'm Bob DeAngelis, for those that don't know me. Keith Holmes, Sarah Wilson, Paul Moskowitz are all part of the team, and Sarah's on.
And it looks like Swornoff just joined us as well.
Oh, great. Okay.
Hey,
Hey,
Swornoff.
everyone.
How are
Sorry
you,
about the
Swornoff?
delay.
No, see, we're early, so so I'll see what happens when I run ahead of schedule.
Hey, this is a good thing.
It is good. And our group meets monthly on the third Wednesday of each month at 6:30 p.m. So what we're going to talk about are the task force. You just met the folks on the team. Quick indicators of climate change. What's the town doing? What can residents do? And see if you have any questions.
Great.
Look, we could spend a long time about climate change, but I'm just going to spend one chart on it. And that is, there are plenty of indicators that the world is warming. Things like ice melting, reducing, sea levels rising, ocean heat are up, land temperatures are up. So all these things are creating a world that's going to be different than what we used to know. And our goal is to try to do something. In New York State, there's a lot of good programs and legislation that can help enable. And the climate smart community is one of the frameworks developed by New York State for municipalities and communities like ours. And it's a program that has a number of facets. It's actually quite extensive, but it's a good program and it's a good outline for us. Here are some of the highlights of it. There's actually quite a few details, but I'm not going to take you through those. But first of all, we need to have a leadership team, which is what this Climate Smart Communities Task Force is. Let me just also say that Supervisor Slater joins virtually every meeting we have. Really, really appreciate that. We need to take inventory of all of our energy use and greenhouse gas emissions, because that forms a baseline from which we can decide, what actions to take and how to improve it. And then drive reductions. And when we drive reductions in energy or consumables of that nature, we save money, we reduce heat, greenhouse gases, and oftentimes the local air becomes healthy. So it's a win-win-win. You'll see a few win-win-wins this evening. And we will try to shift to cleaner energy. That's the goal, with similar benefits. And throughout all the programs that the town manages, we try to introduce the thought of being climate conscious, doing things considering the greenhouse gas emissions. So things like land use, recycle, materials that you purchase, construction, all these things have impacts. Engaging the public, this is really one of the first engagements, and we'll have more, and then innovate and measure along the way. Now, as we do this, you heard, we're going to keep saving money. Saving energy saves money. And New York State programs also provide financial incentives like grants and rebates, which can lead to further savings and enable those savings. And by the way, this task force is 100% volunteer, so it doesn't cost you anything. Now, what's the town doing? Well, first, there's so many things. Legislation to facilitate and regulate solar installations, unified solar permit, great. Battery storage legislation, as you probably know, as you shift to renewable energy, storage becomes something that needs to be seriously considered, and battery storage needs to be managed. And I think a lot of thought went into that, and it's a good right direction. Now, community solar is a wonderful program that Sustainable Westchester offers, and over, I don't know, Supervisor Slater, if there's more than 200 people who signed up. I don't know if you have the latest number.
I don't have the latest. They haven't provided the latest, but at the time that we got our last report, it was more than 200, and we were the #1 municipality with community solar.
That's great, and that's largely because you sent that letter to everybody, and that really helped. It's a great program, gives people an opportunity to save up to 10% on their electric bills. It's a way of supporting these multi-user solar installations. Now, one of those installations is going to be installed at the Granite Knolls parking lot, I understand, and you've negotiated $143,000 a year to come to the town. So there's another win-win-win where we're getting clean energy, residents can save money, and the town makes money. I guess you would say, what's not to like about that? In addition, there's the Arcadia Farm solar installation. So things are moving in a very good direction. The municipality also has a deal that saves about $25,000 a year to purchase clean local electric for the town with Lodestone.
Yep.
In addition, things like curbside recycling. And I just will take a minute to say, since people are listening, it's a great program. It does need to be, the rules should be followed in terms of how to segregate things. Certainly no plastic bags in recycle. But it's a great benefit to have these things picked up curbside. Not every town does that. We have organic yard waste, holiday tree collection, containers for recycle located strategically in all the municipal buildings, and the collection of e-waste and textiles. They're great programs. They really are. I take advantage of them myself. The town is leveraging these New York State programs. To mention, the Climate Smart Community, which we're targeting to be bronze certified this year, and then the Clean Energy Community program. And that program really can qualify you for significant grants.
Okay.
Like money, that's a good program to be in. And it's money for doing the right thing. In addition, the town legislated a green procurement policy so that environmental considerations and climate considerations are made whenever something's purchased. The town has protected trees all along and is a Tree City USA recognized by the Arbor Day Foundation. Recently, the town, with Supervisor Slater's leadership, approved the food scraps collection program at Downing Park, and that's working in collaboration with Westchester County, which is a way of community compost. And of course, ongoing partnerships with Sustainable Westchester, New York Power Authority, New York State Electric and Gas, and NYSERDA. Now, the police department has its first hybrid vehicle. There's a photo of it here. Street lights, and now for those that may not realize this, I think you probably all know this, but Yorktown has electricity supplied by Con Ed and by New York State Electric and Gas. So the street lights in New York State Electric and Gas have already been negotiated to be converted to LEDs. And as you probably know, LEDs give you about the same amount of light as the other for about 10% electricity. So you're saving close to 90%. It's a great technology. We're doing this community education, and we have completed a pretty good inventory of the energy use and greenhouse gas emissions. I'll show you that. Okay, so there's a little bit of an eye chart, and I'm just going to explain it very quickly. On the left side, the blue and the kind of orangish red, those are all vehicles. Oh. On the right side, there are buildings and facilities. The y-axis is metric tons a year of carbon dioxide or equivalent carbon dioxide. There are a few gases that result in greenhouse gas. There are greenhouse gases that aren't just carbon dioxide. They're all included in these calculations. So what you'll see working way over from the left to the right, the first big peak is the highway department, and that's blue, that's diesel. And they do use quite a bit of diesel with their trucks. The next really large peak is the police department using a significant amount of gasoline. And then as you move over to buildings, you'll see the wastewater treatment plant and the associated pump stations. If you were to stack them together, is the largest use of power we have. Mm-hmm. And if the electricity you're using is not generated completely with renewable sources, of course, it has a greenhouse gas component. Typically, it's natural gas because it's been so cheap lately. And that's probably what results in this. You may also find it interesting. I found it interesting when doing these calculations that Con Ed, or I know the town doesn't buy Con Ed power, but Con Ed or some of the other utilities have fairly dirty power, meaning it has lots of greenhouse gas emissions. New York State Electric and Gas is actually much better. And this, also shows you the electricity streetlights. And so this is available if anybody would like to ever see it. There's a report associated with this, but this can give us the foundation, which we can now drive, our programs from. Now, what's coming next for the town? Because that's not all. Well, the next step will be to do energy audits for the facilities, and that can save money and greenhouse gases. Transform the fleets to electric from gasoline and diesel. Actually, just got a note today from the folks in NIPA that are working on converting the Con Ed streetlights to LED. That hopefully will have that proposal, I believe, within a week.
Great.
In the area of electric power, we'll hopefully see more community solar. I honestly don't know why anybody wouldn't sign up for that program, because it gives you a reduced amount of your electric bill, and it gives us clean energy. We'll be seeing a program, and we had one meeting, you may recall, with Dan Welsh and there may have been other meetings on this, on community choice aggregation. And I won't talk a lot about that, but it's a way of purchasing clean power and consolidating everybody's demand together so that we can get good pricing. And you'll hear more about that in the future. Of course, solar car parts and rooftops, and hopefully migrate the town power supply contracts to more renewable sources. We have the community solar components, but we're still purchasing power down from the utilities. It's not completely. And then we will, again, be putting focused actions based on the greenhouse gas inventory. I'm sure we're going to focus on the wastewater facility. And by the way, the wastewater facility also emits methane, which is a significant greenhouse gas. It's actually about 80 times more powerful greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. Well, we did not calculate how much methane is coming from that, but it is significant. It's just kind of complicated. We expect to roll out and expand the food scraps recycling program, the number of EV stations.
Yep.
Continue to protect trees. I'd like to spend also a few minutes on what can residents do. The town's doing a lot of great things. You may recall I've shown this chart before. This is from Yorktown 100, and that is each household in Yorktown results in very close to about 60 metric tons per year of carbon dioxide. And transportation being the largest component, home heating, a very large component, the electricity we purchase. Now, we may look at electricity and say, gee, it's not as big as I would have thought. But keep in mind, as we migrate our heating systems and our transportation to electricity, this electric column will become larger and larger. So it's more important in the future that it be clean. And when I say clean, I mean free of generating lots of greenhouse gases. Everything we purchase, goods and services, all result in carbon dioxide emissions. Food, waste, zip over, all of that. Now, the zip overhead is the piece we're working on. So some simple things residents can do to take that number down for their house. First of all, take inventory. You can calculate your household carbon footprint. A great calculator in Yorktown 100 that was developed by the Croton team, and figure out your actual carbon emissions for your household. Purchase clean electric power. Either sign up for community solar or clean energy ESCO, or install rooftop solar, whatever you're interested in. If anybody has questions on any of those, I'd be glad, or anyone on our team would be glad to help you with that. Always drive the most efficient vehicle you can and minimize how much you drive. And minimize especially airline travel. Very, very significant carbon footprint. I would really hope everybody would get a free home energy audit and make their needed improvements. It's a great, I mean, it's typically for most people, it's free through NYSERDA. You can insulate, you can plug leaks, you can make a plan to electrify. Heat pumps are a great way of moving your heating system from burning fuels to moving heat. And I could spend more time on that if you ever want. Eat less meat. It's better for the environment and it's healthy for you. Food scrap collection program. Use refillable bottles, not single-use plastic bottles. There's the carbon for those too. And always buy less and buy smarter. This is just an example of what you can do, for example, with your vehicle. If you're driving an SUV, that would be typically about 8 tons a year of footprint. If you drive a sedan, that'll be less. A hybrid, even less. A plug-in hybrid, even less. And when you get to electric and you're buying clean electricity, you can get that down to 0. So we also plan to have upcoming seminars, and Supervisor Slater just spoke about the Sustainable Westchester next week, talking more about community solar. We'll do a session on sustainable home heating and air conditioning, talk about clean power and vehicles and travel. In the meantime, if you have any questions, resources, Yorktown town website through the Climate Smart Communities Task Force has some excellent information, or you can go to yorktown100.org. Any questions?
Well, Bob,
yes.
March 29th at 6 p.m. is our community solar conversation with Sustainable Westchester. There's going to be a link that's going to be shared so people can sign up and learn more about it. We did this, I believe it was in January, and it was actually during a snowstorm. So we're trying to do it again to get more. Believe it or not, they still had close to, I think, 45 people on there. So we're hoping that doing it in the evening on a Monday, we'll get another good response. So March 29th at 6 p.m. And then again, we'll get the video and we'll share it on the government access channel and put it up on the town's website and social media channels. But so that's for community solar, for that letter that Bob referenced, where residents can opt into the community solar program sponsored by Sustainable Westchester. Councilman Patel.
Yes, Bob, thank you for coming. It was really wonderful information you provided. And let me just say, I have 2 things to tell you. The definition of climate and definition of weather. Climate is, it's like a personality. It gives an overview. And the weather is like a mood, is a temporary phenomena. It could be chilly today and hot tomorrow. Thank you so much for really bringing your expertise and the knowledge to share with this community, because we are late, but it cannot be never late. So many countries in the world, they have so much solar energy used in all over the world. And we had a largest program at IBM, and we have given so many technology in terms of solar and many other things. And I think we should now really adapt this energy given by God so we can reduce the carbon footprint on the earth. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
I did have one question, Bob, and thank you for the presentation. I forgot. Before I listened to Sustainable Westchester's presentation, I had already signed up with another company for solar power. So I can't sign up twice, right?
Well, what are you signing up for? Community solar?
Right. But I'd already signed up.
With an ESCO?
Yes.
I believe you can, but I can double check that and get back to you.
Okay.
I think you can as well, Bob. Yeah, I think you can.
I can?
Pretty sure you can,
I
yeah.
so.
Okay, I'll sign up.
What I believe happens is keep in mind that when you do community solar, that's not really supplying all of your electricity.
Right.
You still need to have somebody sort of providing your basic electricity. Then community solar is like a rider on top of that. That whenever the sun is shining, you're going to get credits, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So I believe that you're going to be fine having that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
So that's a win-win-win-win, right?
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, and some people don't realize that when you're doing community solar, let's just say you have Con Ed and you sign up for community solar, you still have a carbon footprint, because if you're still buying your electricity from natural gas, produced Con Ed electricity, some of that is going to be used. So the best deal is to have a clean ESCO and have community solar. Then you have zero.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Maybe you can just tell the people, those who are listening today, that how easy it is to get into this program. Just one or few words.
Yeah, it's very easy. You just basically go to the Sustainable Westchester webpage, and a couple of clicks on your mouse, and within, I think someone timed it, within 7 minutes, you can be on community solar. Now, it may not start immediately. Some depends on if the systems are available. Some are under construction, that sort of thing. But once signing up will just take you minutes, and then they'll let you know when the power is available.
Okay. And is there any long-term commitment to get in and out? Anything? Anybody has any questions?
You can always get out if you wanted to. Again, I don't know anybody would, because you're saving money and you're helping the environment.
I'm just saying.
But if you wanted to, you can get out. It's a good question. Thank you for it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, listen, we appreciate all your help and leadership. You're doing a great job with the CSC task force. And I'm very, very confident that we will be recognized as one of the newest CSC communities in New York State. So thank you very, very much for all your efforts. And I know we have Swarnoff on as well, who's muted, but again, to Swarnoff as well for his leadership.
We appreciate it.
Great.
The team effort.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're going to keep pushing through. We're going to get bronze and then hopefully silver not too far after. So
we couldn't do it. We couldn't do it without you. I guarantee you that. So thank you for your support and leadership.
The town is doing great things, so we're really excited about it.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you. Great progress, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you, Smarnoff.
Thank you,
Sarah. Thank you, Bob, for your presentation.
Okay. Bye-bye.
We have to meet someday.
We're going to go do resolutions. We've got a couple from the town board. We're going to authorize the town board to appoint Diego Jaramilla as an alternate member of the Parks and Recreation Commission. And Diego, if I butchered your last name, I am so sorry. We're going to authorize the town board to appoint Roxanne Visconti as an alternate member of the planning board. We're going to authorize the supervisor to enter into an amendment of the contract with Thompson & Bender in an amount not to exceed $30,000. From the town clerk, authorize the town clerk to advertise bid for T-shirts and uniforms. Authorize the town clerk to advertise bid for asphalt repair. From the finance department, authorize the comptroller to pay the cash value of unused time for Patricia DeMarsh at her date of separation. From the highway department, award bid for asphaltic concrete and liquid. How do you say that one, Councilman Patel?
Bituminous.
Bituminous. Oh, thank you, Councilman Diana. Bituminous material. Award bid for removal of tree stumps and logs. Also from the highway department. From personnel, Deanna Peterson to have her civil service status changed from probationary to permanent. And the town board accepts the retirement of Detective Timothy Taus.
Yes, that's unfortunate. Motion.
So, seconds.
Motion, second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All motions carry. And with that, we will entertain, with no more business before the town board, a meeting to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Good
opposed?
night, everyone.
Have a good night, Yorktown. Stay safe, stay smart. Thank you.
What'd you say, Ed?